Hey, welcome back to the Ready State. Today we're talking about an important concept called mobilize at the position of restriction, which is shorthand for, it's not really shorthand, but shorthand for your tissues and musculature and body is context specific. In fact, your brain is wired for movement, not for tissues or musculature. So if you're trying to change a position, mobilize the tissues in that position, or a conjugate of that position, an isomer of that position, if you were. Now check it out. One of our favorites is called monkey bars of death. And what's nice is that when we used to have gyms, you could throw your leg up on a barbell and get the kinds of pressures required to actually address these ropey, stiff-ass hamstrings. Now what was nice was that if you had a barbell at home, you could even move this closer to the insertions of the hamstring into the pelvis. What was also nice is that you had full access to the lower leg. So I could take and put this hamstring and this soft tissue of the posterior chain into full flexion and into long lever. So I could be working on multiple positions. This is a long sit position, and this is a ass to ankle squat, for lack of a better phrase. So what's nice also about the monkey bars is it allowed us to work laterally into these tissues, obliquely, and because the bar was a little bit smaller diameter, we had a little bit more point specific. What we tend to see is people trying to roll their hamstrings on a roller that's this big, and they're doing it in a long sit position. They're not even close to getting the kinds of pressures, the kinds of positioning fluency that we're interested in. Now take a look at this. We can approximate closely to the same thing if you have a ball or a roller and a high bar stool. What this suddenly gives you is a lot of the same effect, where I can hang most of my weight through these tissues, I can go side to side, and I can add a ton of leg motion in here. So what's important about this is appreciating that sometimes we see really junky insertions of hamstrings onto pelvis. Our athletes are working really hard and then potentially sitting, for whatever reasons. This is not conducive to decongesting these tissues. So what we tend to see is that a lot of these hamstring insertional related problems could be blood flow, could be stiffness, or just lack of sort of movement in these areas. And what's nice about having access to this kind of mobilization at home is you can get really super personal, if you know what I'm talking about, right up in your business and close to that other side, appreciating those adductors are coming in to the side. You can shear back and forth and rotate and scrub and get into some of these insertions. Plus, you have access much further on. So mobilize the position of restriction means that, hey, I appreciate it's not just hamstrings. It's this whole tissue system put into the context of something I'm trying to change, which looks like a deep squat or more like a deadlift in a longer lever position. I'm winding up and able to take my spine out of this. So instead of just sitting on the ground and letting my spine reverse and never having full access to that positional quality of the hip coming into true flexion because I'm being stuck in the back seat, this gives me further access to a lot of the musculature and tissues of the hip, which means we're actually mobilizing and appreciating that when the hip's in this position, it looks a lot more like a squat than if I'm laying on the ground trying to roll around. So once in a while, get up off the ground. If you've got a squat rack at home, do it. If you've got a ball and a bar stool, you're set. Turns out Captain Morgan knew something was up, and we can just take that Captain Morgan pose and add a little pressure to it. Monkey bars of death is born. Enjoy.